I'm going to let a couple more people get on, and then I'm going to read an opening book. I'm going to do a little something different today. I have a book that's called Little Leaders, Bold Women in Black History. And it's basically a book that features biographies of women, significant women who've made contributions to history, black women. And it's written for children. So, good morning. Oh, hey, Dylan Jr.'s on. Hey, Wendy. Wendy's on, so that means my nephew Robbie is on. Good morning, Robbie. Hey, Bobby. Oh, cool, you have this book too. Good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read one of the profiles from this book, check our time, see if our guest is on, and if he is, we'll go ahead and add my uncle in. And if he's not ready yet, then I got another story that I can read. But I do see that he's on. Hey, Uncle Dylan. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read this story. The person from Little Leaders, Bold Women in Black History, and it's by Vashti Harrison. And like I said, it features biographies of women who have made significant contributions to our history. And today, the person that I selected is Alice Ball. This is an illustration of Alice Ball. Alice Ball, the reason I selected her is because Alice Ball was a chemist and a medical researcher. Oh, Tamia's on. Hi, Tamia. Good morning. Thank you for joining. Mr. Barber's daughter is on. All right. So I'm going to tell you all about Alice Ball because I just think it's appropriate right now with everything that's going on. Some of the people right now who are really making a lot of changes that are and discoveries that are going to be helping us get through this are scientists, doctors, chemists, medical researchers. And so Alice Ball, who was born in 1892, she died in 1916. Both Alice's mother and grandfather were photographers, and as a child, she developed an interest in the chemicals used in photography. She went to college in her hometown of Seattle and earned not one but 2 degrees in pharmaceutical chemistry and pharmacy. What an accomplishment for a young woman. Just so you know, pharmaceutical chemistry, those are the people that help make the medicines that make you feel better when you get sick. So that's a very important job. And at that time, most of the African American population in the city was employed in professional services, cleaning homes or making food, for example. But Alice defied expectations and her circumstances by seeking an education and a career in science. In 1915, Alice became the first woman and the first African American to graduate with a master's degree from the University of Hawaii. While working on her thesis, she developed what would become the leading treatment of leprosy, which was a serious, incurable disease. We know we've been talking a lot about another disease right now, the COVID-19. So maybe there's a new Alice Ball right now that's working on something that will help treat the COVID-19 and help people get better. So everybody can go back to school. I know you miss school. This treatment became the primary method that would be used until the 1940s. But for a long time, no one even knew that Alice was the inventor. Less than 2 years after this discovery, Alice died, and the director of the program took credit for her findings. You know that was not fair. Alice's method became known as the Dean method. It wasn't until the 1970s that historians unearthed the truth and worked to ensure that Alice got credit for her important discovery. On February 29th, 2000, the University of Hawaii recognized her for her work and dedicated a plaque to her on the only Chalmunga tree on the school's campus. That day, the Lieutenant Governor of Hawaii declared February 29th Alice Ball Day. So you see that? Even though somebody tried to take her idea and use it as her own, eventually historians, people like people that work at the Black Archives, did research and found out what she actually did, and they were able to make the public know what she contributed to society. So I think it was a very interesting story, and this is, again, Alice Ball, and it is from Little Leaders, Bold Women in Black History. So I'm going to check now. Oh, good morning. I see some more people joined. Robbie's blowing me kisses. Good morning. Aunt Sandra, I see you. So this book, the dedication in this book, I think was really cool. The author dedicated this book to all the women whose stories are in this book. Thank you for being leaders. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for being bold. We are grateful and we are inspired. To all the leaders yet to come, big or little, I cannot wait to hear your stories. And I can't wait to hear your stories either. And I know there's a lot of brave and bold people right now that are doing what this woman did, and doing what people like my sister-in-law Wendy, who's a nurse, a lot of the teachers who are working from home as well as taking care of their families, and a lot of the parents who are now teachers. So I think that these are great examples to follow, and I hope that the little ones out there go out there and try to pursue some great big dreams, because it's really nothing that you can't do. So if my uncle is ready, Uncle Dylan, if you're ready, you can go ahead and request to join, and I'll add you in and we can get started on your part. Thank you, Mrs. Ruckus. I'm glad you enjoyed it. In the meantime, if anybody has any questions, I'm super excited. You have to just scroll to the top of the comments so that you can request to join the live. Thank you. I thought it was a cute story too, and I thought it was also appropriate for, right now. It's good to learn about some of the women who made some significant strides in medicine. Leprosy was a disease in that time that was, very serious, and they didn't have a cure for it. So the fact that she was instrumental in creating a treatment for it is a big deal. So we're ready to go live. Hey, Unc. How you doing?
Hey,
So
doing well. You?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Everybody, this is Dylan Pritchett Sr. He is my uncle, my father's only brother and
That's right.
youngest sibling.
I'm the baby.
And yeah. And he also is a master storyteller. For as long as I have known, he has been telling stories, and uh, doing this, mainly focusing on the Black experience and telling stories that convey the Black experience to
You know,
people of all ages. Although every time you start telling a story, I feel like a child. I get all engrossed in it and really into it. So tell us a little bit about what you got going on and what you might do for us today.
well, a lot is going on, but before I do that, I want to talk about Miss Ball. because it reminds me of a lot of things. In the 18th century, there was a gentleman who received his freedom because he came up with a cure with roots and herbs for venereal disease. Only 3 ways you could obtain freedom: you buy it, it be willed to you, or meritorious service. And he was given meritorious service. It reminds me of a book called Blacks in Science, written by Ivan Van Sertima. You got to get it. Ivan Van Sertima. And in Blacks in Science, it was about this African tribe that that used a certain antiseptic. They didn't know the name of it, but they were having 100% success in cesarean births. In England, that was not the case. And so they wanted to figure out what this African tribe was doing. So they went there and they asked them, what do you do? And they watched them, and they would always wash with something. And then they said, what is that? They said, it's from the baobab tree. And they said, what? Well, we take the bark from the baobab tree and bath, and they didn't know the properties of it. But then they took it back to England and figured out the properties, and voila, guess what we've discovered? No, y'all ain't discovered that. It's this tribe that didn't know the technical name for what you came up with. There's always been these inventors and these inventions. Grandma and great grandma had this stuff. They give you this stuff and say, eat this and that take care. We say, but that stuff worked. And so there's a lot of these inventions that once people figure out the properties of it, and it comes to light. So that is one of probably thousands of stories. The cotton gin is said to have been developed by a Black man who couldn't get it patented. And so, here come Eli who did it. But anyway, that was on my mind listening to Miss Butler.
Yeah.
And that's good stuff. That means that the little things that we do, we might not be able to explain how it works, but it works.
Right. Right.
Just like doing good works. Staying at home, works. So, but what's going on? There's a new book that dropped, my new book called The Yellow-Speckled Blackbird. And it dropped in February, about the 26th, which was right at the time where they said stay at home. So I didn't have the chance to get it out there. And it was written, it took about 4 years for it to actually get in print. But I like the publisher, which is the McLaurin Cochran and the Huskies. And because they do their books in 2 different fonts. They do in a regular font, and then they do one for dyslexic children. And so the font is different, the background is different. And if you were to see the 2 versions, you would be able to see the difference, but wouldn't understand them. But this dyslexic child would be able to see it. A lot of the fluff in the background is not there. The colors are a little bit different, and definitely the font is different. And I like the idea that they're trying to reach children in their way, rather than trying to adapt the way everyone else might read or everyone else might learn. So what I wanted to do is to read that story. Okay. And then I got another story that I wanted to do. Now, I don't know about now, like I might be the baby of the family, but I'm still getting old. So I got to put my glasses on to read.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Do what you got to. I got mine on too. Because this book font is smaller than the other children's book font, so I didn't want to put stuff. So you understand?
Okay, the name of the book is called The Yellow-Speckled Blackbird. And it's illustrated by Lisa Hancock. Got to get it right.
Uncle Darling, Robbie says hi in the comments.
Hey, Robbie. I call him little bro, by the way. Matter of fact, if you look over my shoulder right here, you've seen that before, right?
Yep.
My brother painted that. And so, little bro, look at what granddaddy did.
Yep.
Touched my heart. A yellow-speckled baby, blackbird, landed on Calvin's windowsill and started to sing. She was unusual color, yet a beautiful bird. Her special song was more melodic than the other birds. I need a page turner like the musicians, Jay. What an amazing, pretty bird. What a beautiful voice, Calvin thought as he listened from his window. I would love to have her all to myself. Bird flew away. The next morning, the yellow-speckled blackbird returned. Again, Bird sang her melody. For the first time, she gazed into Calvin's eyes. Her tiny outstretched wings displayed an array of yellow specks peppered throughout. Bird kept singing and fluttering her wings, the yellow and black pinwheel spinning around. Calvin watched in wonder at her beauty. Then, Bird flew away. On the third morning, as if on schedule to meet the sun, Bird returned. Calvin thought that she looked hungry. He lifted the window to give Bird a pinch of bread. The bird screeched and startled Bird, and she flew over to the nearby oak branch. From the leafy branch, she began her lovely song. Other birds trilled in harmony. Then, Bird flew away. Calvin enjoyed that music. By the fourth morning, Calvin decided to catch the bird and put her in a cage. He wanted to keep the bird healthy, but even more, he wanted to keep her music and beauty all to himself. As soon as Bird perched on his windowsill, Calvin swiftly hoisted up the newly greased window pane, grabbed the bird, and placed her in a cage. Bird stayed silent and still. Calvin noticed the yellow speckles on her feathers appeared to be fading, and her black wings were losing their luster. Calvin began to worry. He didn't want to harm her. For 6 more days, Bird took nothing to eat or drink. She did not sing. Other birds landed outside on the oak branches and peered at the window as if wondering where their lead singer had gone. By evening, they flew away. Calvin knew what he must do. He reached into the cage and gently wrapped his fingers around Bird's frail body. He lifted the window and placed her outside on the sill. Bird slowly turned her head to look at him, chirped once, and gingerly lifted off to join the others. Calvin was very sad. At dawn the next morning, Bird returned and began to sing from the oak branch. Calvin, so surprised, he leaned out the open window and admired her lovely song. Other birds sang along. Bird looked into Calvin's eyes and fluttered her delicate wings. Her music delighted him as never before. Now he knew that she could bring him happiness and share her gifts with others too. Bird was free. And that's the story.
Nice. Yes.
That's the story.
Loved it. Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it.
And you know, the thing about the story is can be looked at a lot of different ways. And storytelling, you tell stories for many reasons, but within the African tradition, the purpose is to create discussion and to get a lesson from it. Mm-hmm. And there's always 1,000 lessons, all depending upon what people heard. And children would hear that differently. children would hear that the message of, well, the bird wasn't happy, so the bird didn't sing.
Right.
When you get a little older, it's like, well, the focus might even be on the boy. Well, the boy was being selfish and he blah, 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 blah. But from an adult perspective, they might take that totally different, is that you can't be bottled up. Or if you're in a psychiatrist's chair, they will be telling you, oh, but you have it in you. You know, this is just is temporary, because you can still sing. And, you know, what's keeping that from not coming out? You know, and so it is to create discussion. I can't, at the time, really tell you, you know, what I was thinking when I wrote it, and the message was definitely the way that we as people will take things because we want it, and take things because you know, regardless of how it affects the other people. And it might be a good lesson for us now, you know, I mean, because some of us might feel caged in, but the bottom line is that it's still within us. You know, sometimes you need restraint, and sometimes other people have to put restraint on you. And, you know, Bird is free now, but Bird was free before, you know, but Bird was being confined by other circumstances. And that's an adult lesson too. But we could, you know, we go back and forth and back and forth. It'd be interesting to see what some of the viewers think later.
Yeah, they can invite them while we're going. They can go ahead and put their comments or questions. So at the
That's
end,
right. Okay.
we can scroll up and go through them.
All right. Now,
great. Now, how did you link up? Well, I was just going to ask you, how did you link up with the illustrator for the book?
The publisher does that.
Oh,
what happened was, what happened is in this instance, the publisher accepts the manuscript, and then they have a pool of illustrators that they can then check with. It was probably, Ms. Hancock was probably the third illustrator, because they would send me mock illustrations. They would ask somebody, they would say, Kamila, you're the artist, could you go and draw what's in your head for this character? Mm-hmm. And I saw real quick, since these are stories in color, I found out real quick that everybody can't sketch African American people. Hair might be a little different, right. Chin is a little different, or they go the other way and everything is overblown. Forehead too big, nose, that sort of thing. And we're such a people that, people of color have to be portrayed in a certain way. Lisa did a good job. There was maybe one or two, and I said, as a matter of fact, the interesting thing is the publisher really didn't, I don't know if they knew that I was an African American or not. And so it was like the second thought. I finally, in responding back and forth, I said, well, I want the character to be an African American because that's what was in my head when I wrote it. And after I sent that off, I said, I don't even know if they knew that, because Calvin is Calvin, As a matter of fact, Calvin is he's in the book. He don't know it yet because he ain't come by to get his copy. The reason his name is Calvin is he was my first nephew, the one that first made me an uncle. So that's why he's Calvin. I got one for Kamila now. Yeah. She's in a couple of stories. I just got to get the right publisher. But anyway, that's the easy part. The difficult part is just getting somebody that has the ear, because a lot of my stories are about African American or African based. And so you have to find editors that hear what you're saying and understand the importance of it within not just the African American community, but in general. Okay. Yeah.
I see Asia's on.
Hey, Asia. I see a lot of family on. We should have had a reunion.
Yeah. So what you gonna do next?
My first book was called The First Music. Mm-hmm. Now, The first music, and this is it. The first music, and you can get both of these on Amazon, by the way. But the
Yes.
first music is was my very first book, but the book version is not what I wrote. The book version is not the first edition.
Okay.
And what I wanted to do is not read the book, because you can buy that on Amazon, or you can go to who's the publisher of this?
August, is that?
August House. That's August House Publishing, and read what that version is. But I want to do the very first version, and you won't hear this anywhere else. It's not written in paper, written down anywhere, and so this is special for your listeners.
Oh, thank you. So
And
privileged.
some may have heard it, because not the first time I told it, but anyway, once you hear the story, you got to read the book so you can figure out what it is. And I'll give a couple of hints when I'm finished. Now, I don't know if they want to participate, but if you want to participate, what you have to do is, for those of you who want to participate, when I say when I say the elephant and monkey played and danced, you want to go.
Hey, good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Java. Good morning, everybody. Hey, Steph. My cousin Steph is online. So hi to Mackenzie and Riley. I know they're watching. Good morning. We're excited today. My uncle is on. He's going to be joining us to read a story, do some storytelling. I think it's going to be really fun. Good morning. Hey, Mom, Pink Rose. Good morning, Mrs. Ruckus. How you doing? Good morning. Hey, Aunt Sandra. Good morning. Oh, my cousin Shannon is on. Hey, Shannon and Byron. How y'all doing? Stephanie, tell Keith hi too, since I said hey to everybody. I'm going to let a couple more people get on, and then I'm going to read an opening book. I'm going to do a little something different today. I have a book that's called Little Leaders, Bold Women in Black History. And it's basically a book that features biographies of women, significant women who've made contributions to history, black women. And it's written for children. So, good morning. Oh, hey, Dylan Jr.'s on. Hey, Wendy. Wendy's on, so that means my nephew Robbie is on. Good morning, Robbie. Hey, Bobby. Oh, cool, you have this book too. Good. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read one of the profiles from this book, check our time, see if our guest is on, and if he is, we'll go ahead and add my uncle in. And if he's not ready yet, then I got another story that I can read. But I do see that he's on.